The rain had stopped only minutes earlier. Drops of water still slid from the carved stone lions that guarded the entrance of the sprawling mansion in Ikoyi, Lagos. Inside the mansion, everything was silent. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked louder than usual. Tick, tick, tick. An elderly man sat alone inside a private library lined with dark mahogany shelves. His breathing was slow, measured. On the polished desk before him rested 3 envelopes. One was addressed to his family lawyer. One carried the names of his children. The last had no name at all. He picked up an expensive fountain pen but hesitated before signing the final page. Instead, he reached into a small wooden box and removed an ordinary 1,000 naira note. He studied it for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. "So," he whispered. "One last test." He folded the note carefully, slipped it inside a plain white envelope, and rang the small brass bell on his desk. A steward entered. "Sir," called the new maid. The steward bowed. "Yes, Chief." The old man leaned back, his eyes drifting toward a framed family photograph taken almost 20 years earlier. Every face in the picture was smiling. Today, none of those smiles remained. At exactly 5 o'clock every morning, Adaobi Eze woke before the rest of Lagos. Her tiny room in a staff quarters behind the mansion contained little more than a narrow bed, a plastic wardrobe, 2 neatly folded dresses, and a framed photograph of her late mother. She folded her blanket with military precision before kneeling beside the bed. "God," she prayed softly, "help me keep my hands clean, my words gentle, and my heart grateful." Only then did she begin her day. Adabi was 26. She came from Saka, Enugu State, where her widowed mother had spent years selling vegetables by the roadside until illness claimed her life. After the funeral, Adabi had come to Lagos searching for honest work. She found it in the home of one of Nigeria's richest businessmen. Few people knew much about Chief Emeka Adeyemi anymore. Newspapers once called him the silent lion of Nigerian manufacturing. His companies employed thousands. His donations had built schools and clinics across several states. Yet in recent years he rarely appeared in public. Rumors filled the silence. Some said he was dying. Others claimed his children had already begun fighting over his empire. Inside the mansion, nobody dared ask. Adabi had worked there for only 4 months. Long enough to notice something strange. Unlike wealthy men she had seen on television, Chief Emeka greeted every gardener by name. He thanked cooks after meals. He apologized if someone waited too long outside his office. But he almost never smiled around his own family. Breakfast was always uncomfortable. Chief Emeka sat at the head of the enormous dining table. His eldest son, Femi, spent more time checking stock prices on his tablet than speaking to anyone. His daughter, Tolani, constantly complained about charity expenses. "Father donates too much," she muttered one morning. "It's good for publicity," Femi answered without looking up. "No. It's wasteful." Across the table sat their cousin Chike, who had moved into the mansion after his father's death. He laughed. "Maybe uncle wants strangers to inherit everything." Nobody laughed with him. Chief Emeka quietly placed his spoon down. People who see kindness as waste rarely understand wealth. The room fell silent. Tolani rolled her eyes. Adabi continued serving tea without reacting. She had learned quickly that servants who listened too closely seldom kept their jobs. Later that morning, while dusting the library, Adabi noticed the chief standing by the window. He was looking toward the garden where workers trimmed hedges. "You always arrive first," he said without turning. "Yes, sir." "And you leave last." "There is always something left to do." He nodded slowly. "My late wife used to say that." Adabi smiled politely. "I never had the privilege of meeting her." "No." His voice became distant. You would have liked each other. For several seconds neither spoke. Then he handed her the plain white envelope. I misplaced this somewhere in the house yesterday. She looked confused. I'd like you to find where it belongs. But, sir. He interrupted gently. Take your time. She accepted it respectfully. As you wish. The envelope felt surprisingly thick. Adabi carried it upstairs while continuing her walk. Inside one of the guest bedrooms she finally opened it. A folded 1,000 naira note slipped onto the floor. Nothing else. She frowned. No name. She searched both sides. Blank. Perhaps it belonged in petty cash. Or perhaps someone had forgotten it. She walked downstairs intending to ask the accountant. Before reaching the office corridor, voices stopped her. She recognized Chike. I'm telling you, Uncle won't last a year. Another voice answered. The family lawyer. We shouldn't discuss that. Why not? We all know he's rewriting the will. Adabi quietly stepped backward. She turned toward another hallway. She wanted no part of conversations that did not concern her. As she rounded the corner, she nearly collided with Chief Emeka. Did you find its owner? She extended the envelope. No, sir. I thought perhaps accounting. He raised a hand. No. She looked puzzled. I couldn't identify who it belonged to. So I brought it back. His eyes rested on hers for several long seconds. Then, he smiled. A genuine smile. The first anyone in the mansion had seen in weeks. Thank you. She bowed slightly and continued walking. Behind her, the old billionaire whispered almost inaudibly. Interesting. The days that followed became stranger. Chief Emeka began assigning Adabi tiny responsibilities that made little sense. Deliver a sealed folder without opening it. Count antique coins. Organize confidential files. Carry signed documents to his lawyer. Every task involved trust. Every task offered opportunities to pry. She never did. Not once. The other workers noticed. One afternoon the head steward, Boba Su, chuckled while polishing silverware. You know why Oga keeps calling you? Adabi shook her head. No. He's watching. Watching what? You. She laughed nervously. I've done nothing. Exactly. Not everyone appreciated the attention. The mansion's senior housekeeper, Mrs. Rongbamedil, had worked there for almost 15 years. She believed promotion should have come to her long ago. Instead, the old man increasingly requested the new maid. Bitterness slowly settled into her heart. One evening she confronted Adabi in the laundry room. You think you're special? No, Ma. You spend too much time in Oga's study. He only gives me work. Mrs. Ronk stepped closer. I know girls like you. Adabi lowered her eyes. I don't understand. You will. She walked away before Adabi could answer. A week later, Chief Emeka called for another private meeting. This time, his family happened to be visiting. As Adabi entered the library carrying tea, the room fell quiet. Femi looked at her suspiciously. Tolani frowned. Chike smirked. Chief Emeka accepted the tray. Leave the tea. Yes, sir. She turned to go. Then his calm voice stopped her. Adabi. She faced him. I'll need you tomorrow morning. Certainly, sir. For something important. The family exchanged uneasy glances. The maid bowed and left. The heavy library doors closed behind her. Inside, Chike's voice broke the silence. Uncle. Why exactly does a maid need to attend something important? Chief Emeka slowly lifted his teacup. Because sometimes. He took a measured sip. The people with the least power reveal the most about those who have it. Outside the closed doors, Adabi paused for just a heartbeat. Not to listen. Only because she sensed, somehow, that the quiet life she had fought so hard to build was about to change forever. And upstairs, hidden behind a row of old law books, Chief Emeka's revised will lay unfinished, waiting for one final decision that no one in the mansion yet understood. The next morning, the mansion stirred earlier than usual. A convoy of black luxury sedans rolled through the iron gates one after another. The security guards straightened their uniforms. The gardeners stopped trimming hedges. Even the kitchen staff whispered among themselves. Lawyers are here. No, not just lawyers. I heard the company's auditors too. Adabi stood quietly near the service entrance, adjusting the cuffs of her neatly pressed uniform. She had no idea why Chief Emeka had asked for her. Boba Sul walked past carrying a tray of coffee. He leaned toward her. Whatever happens today, answer only what you asked. She nodded. I always do. I know. He gave her a reassuring smile before disappearing down the hallway. Inside the private library, Chief Emeka sat beside his longtime lawyer, Barrister Olumide Ekimwell, a man whose silver hair matched the calm in his voice. Several thick files covered the polished table. Company reports. Medical documents. Estate records. The atmosphere felt less like a family home and more like a boardroom preparing for a difficult vote. One by one, family members entered. Femi. Tolani. Chaik. Mrs. Ronk stood discreetly near the back, pretending to supervise refreshments while listening to every word. Finally, Chief Emeka looked toward the door. Ask Adabi to come in. The room fell silent. The maid stepped inside slowly, her eyes lowered. You sent for me, sir? Yes. He motioned toward a single chair. Please sit. She hesitated. Sir. I don't think. It wasn't a suggestion. She sat carefully, clearly uncomfortable being in the same room as the billionaire's family. Chief Emeka folded his hands. Barrister. The lawyer slid a sealed brown envelope across the table toward Adabi. I want you to keep this until 6 o'clock this evening. She blinked. Me? Yes. It contains confidential documents. Her hands immediately withdrew. Sir, wouldn't it be safer with the lawyer? Femi scoffed. This is ridiculous. Tolani crossed her arms. Father, what are you trying to prove? Chief Emeka ignored them. He looked only at Adabi. Will you keep it safe? She swallowed. If that is your instruction. He nodded. Do not open it. I won't. Do not give it to anyone. I won't. Not even if they say I asked them. She frowned slightly. I will only return it to you personally. A faint smile appeared on the old billionaire's face. Good. The news spread through the mansion within minutes. The chief gave confidential papers to the maid. Why her? Has she become his secretary? Mrs. Ronk's resentment deepened. She cornered Check near the staircase. Young master. He looked at her. What? I think your uncle trusts that girl too much. Check narrowed his eyes. What are you suggesting? I've worked here 15 years. He waited. He has never trusted me with legal documents. Check looked toward the corridor where Adabi was quietly dusting a display cabinet. An idea slowly formed. That afternoon, Adabi continued her duties with the envelope locked inside a small drawer in the housekeeping office. She checked it twice. Then returned to cleaning. Just after lunch, Chuck approached her carrying an easy smile. Adabi. Good afternoon, sir. My uncle asked me to collect the envelope. She immediately shook her head. He told me to return it only to him. Chuck chuckled. He's busy. I'm sorry, sir. I'm family. I'm sorry. His smile faded. You don't trust me. It isn't about trust. What is it then? I gave him my word. For a moment neither moved. Then Chike laughed loudly enough for nearby workers to hear. You're taking this too seriously. I have to. He walked away, but the warmth had disappeared from his face. An hour later, Mrs. Ronk entered the housekeeping office. She closed the door behind her. Adabi. Yes, Ma. The chief collapsed in the garden. Adabi's eyes widened. What? They've taken him upstairs. She instinctively reached for the drawer containing the envelope. I should bring this to him. Mrs. Ronk stepped closer. No. The doctor says no visitors. Then I'll wait. Mrs. Ronk lowered her voice. Give it to me. Adabi froze. The chief told me. I've managed this house for 15 years. I understand. Then obey. Adabi looked at the envelope. Then back at the older woman. I'm sorry. Mrs. Ronk's expression hardened. You think I'm lying? No. You think you're smarter than everyone? No, Ma. Then give it here. Adabi slowly closed the drawer again. I can't. For several seconds the room remained silent. Mrs. Ronk turned without another word. But the slam of the door echoed through the hallway. Unknown to Adabi, Chief Emeka had not collapsed at all. He was sitting quietly in the security control room beside the head of security. Dozens of CCTV screens covered the wall. Every corridor. Every entrance. Every office. He had watched the entire conversation. Without speaking, he reached for the remote and replayed the footage. Again. And again. Finally he looked at Bobaso. What did you see? The old steward answered carefully. I saw a woman protecting your trust. Chief Emeka nodded. No. Bobaso looked confused. I saw someone protecting her own character. That evening, just before 6 o'clock, Adabi knocked gently on the library door. You asked me to return this personally. Chief Emeka accepted the envelope. The seal remained untouched. He examined it briefly. Thank you. She bowed. If you'll excuse me. Wait. She stopped. Do you know what was inside? She shook her head. No, sir. Would you like to know? She smiled politely. It isn't my business. He opened the envelope. It was empty. Completely empty. Adabi looked surprised. There were no documents. No. She stared silently. You've been guarding an empty envelope all day. She let out a small laugh of relief. I suppose I have. You aren't angry? No. Why not? She answered without hesitation. You asked me to guard your trust, not your papers. The old billionaire's eyes glistened for just a moment. You may go. As she left, he whispered. Thank you. That night, however, another test arrived, one no one had planned. Heavy rain lashed Lagos. Thunder rolled across the city. Around 10 p.m., while most of the household slept, Adabi heard hurried footsteps outside the staff quarters. She opened her door. Bobaso stood there, soaked by the rain. The chief is missing. What? He left his room. How? No one knows. Without another question, Adabi grabbed a flashlight. The two searched the gardens. The gazebo. The garage. Nothing. Then, near the old mango tree at the edge of the property, Adabi spotted a familiar walking stick lying on the wet grass. She shone the flashlight further ahead. Chief Emeka was sitting alone on a stone bench, rain soaking through his traditional attire. He wasn't unconscious. He wasn't injured. He was simply staring into the darkness beyond the fence. Adabi approached slowly. Sir. He didn't answer. She removed her own shawl and gently placed it over his shoulders. You'll catch pneumonia. Still silent. Boba Su started to speak, but Chief Emeka raised one trembling hand. Leave us. The steward nodded and stepped back. For several moments, only the sound of rain filled the night. Finally, the old billionaire spoke. Today is my wife's birthday. Adabi said nothing. I've sat here every year since she died. His fingers tightened around the walking stick. This was our favorite place. She quietly opened the umbrella she had carried and held it over both of them. She did not offer advice. She did not ask questions. She simply stood beside him in the rain. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Neither moved. Inside the mansion, hidden behind the second-floor curtain, Femi watched the scene with narrowed eyes. He turned toward Chike. Do you see that? Chike nodded slowly. Our father has never allowed any employee that close. Femi's jaw tightened. This isn't about trust anymore. What do you think it is? He stared at the lonely figures beneath the umbrella. I think. His voice hardened. That Maid is changing his mind about the will. And for the first time, the rivalry inside the mansion stopped being about suspicion. It became a mission. By morning, someone had decided that Adabi had to be removed from the house before the will was signed. The following morning, the mansion no longer felt like a home. It felt like a courtroom where everyone had already chosen a side. The cooks lowered their voices whenever Adabi entered the kitchen. The gardeners stopped greeting her. Even junior staff avoided standing beside her in the corridors. Rumors had spread faster than the sunrise. The chief is replacing his family with the maid. He's manipulating him. She'll inherit everything. Adabi heard every whisper. She answered none of them. She simply continued polishing the brass railings, changing fresh flowers in the sitting rooms, and preparing the chief's morning tea exactly as she had done every day. At breakfast, the silence was heavier than ever. Chief Emeka unfolded the newspaper but barely read a word. Femi finally spoke. Father. We need to discuss the company. Later. It cannot wait. It can. Femi placed his fork down. This isn't only about business anymore. Chief Emeka looked up. What is it about? Femi glanced toward Adabi, who was quietly serving pap to Boba Su. You know exactly what I mean. The old billionaire calmly wiped his mouth with a napkin. No. I don't. Tolani joined in. Father, the entire staff is talking. People always talk. They are saying you've chosen a maid over your own children. Chief Emeka's face remained unreadable. And what are you saying? She hesitated. I'm saying, appearances matter. He nodded slowly. They do. Then he stood. So does character. Without another word, he walked out. The dining room fell into stunned silence. By noon, Mrs. Ronk made her move. She entered the chief's study carrying a silver tray. On the desk lay a small velvet jewelry box. Inside was Chief Emeka's late wife's diamond brooch, an heirloom that had not left the safe in years. Mrs. Ronk looked toward the empty hallway. No one. She slipped the brooch into the pocket of Adabi's spare cleaning apron hanging on the service hook. Then she quietly left. An hour later, the mansion exploded with shouting. Nobody leaves this house. The voice belonged to Chike. Security guards hurried into the hallway. Staff gathered nervously. Chief Emeka emerged from his office. What happened? Chike held up the empty jewelry box. My aunt's brooch is gone. Gasps rippled through the room. Mrs. Ronk folded her arms. I noticed Adabi cleaning the study earlier. Every eye turned toward the young maid. She looked genuinely confused. I cleaned the shelves. Search everyone, Chike ordered. Security reluctantly began checking bags and uniforms. When they reached Adebi's spare apron, a guard froze. Sir. He slowly pulled out the glittering diamond brooch. The hallway fell silent. Adebi stared in disbelief. No. Chike stepped forward. So this is the honesty everyone keeps praising. I've never seen that before. It came from your pocket. It wasn't mine. Mrs. Ronk shook her head sadly. I warned everyone not to trust new staff. Tears filled Adebi's eyes, not from fear, but from humiliation. I didn't steal it. No one answered. Chief Emeka looked at the brooch. Then at Adabi. Their eyes met. For several long seconds, neither spoke. Finally he asked quietly. Did you take it? No, sir. You understand the seriousness of this? Yes. And you're still saying you didn't? She lifted her chin despite the tears. I would rather lose this job than lose my name. The old billionaire nodded once. Very well. He turned to the head of security. Bring me yesterday's security recordings. Mrs. Ronk's face lost its color. The control room became silent as the footage played. Camera after camera. Corridor. Staircase. Study entrance. Finally, one screen showed Mrs. Ronk entering the empty study. Another captured her slipping something into Adebi's hanging apron. The room froze. No one breathed. The recording continued. She glanced over both shoulders before walking away. Chief Emeka stopped the video. He didn't look at Adabi. He looked only at Mrs. Ronk. Would you like to explain? The older woman's legs trembled. No words came. Chike slowly stepped backward. Femi stared at the floor. Mrs. Ronk suddenly burst into tears. I gave this house 15 years. Chief Emeka remained calm. And I thought. She struggled to breathe. I thought you were replacing all of us. You framed an innocent woman. I was afraid. No. His voice stayed gentle but firm. You chose jealousy over truth. Mrs. Ronk collapsed into a chair, covering her face. For the first time in 15 years, she had no authority left, only regret. That evening, Chief Emeka asked everyone to assemble in the mansion's grand living room. The family. Senior staff. Barrister Maid. Even the gardener stood quietly near the back doors. A single folder rested on the coffee table. The final will. The room felt heavy enough to stop time. Chief Emeka stood slowly with the help of his walking stick. My doctor has advised me to prepare for whatever years I have left. No one interrupted. I built factories. He looked around the room. I built wealth. His gaze settled briefly on his children. But I failed to build trust inside my own home. Silence. I spent months wondering who deserved my estate. He paused. Then I realized I was asking the wrong question. Everyone leaned forward. The question was never, who deserves my money? He placed one hand on the will. It was, who can be trusted when no one is watching? His eyes found Adabi. She immediately lowered hers. Barrister Maid opened the document. The estate remains with the family in accordance with Nigerian law and the chief's wishes. Femi visibly relaxed. Tolani exhaled. Chike looked confused. Then the lawyer continued. However, the room became still again. The chief has created an independent Adeyemi Character Foundation, dedicated to funding education, healthcare, and ethical leadership programs for hardworking Nigerians. Several family members exchanged puzzled looks. Barrister Maid smiled. The chairperson of the foundation will not be selected because of blood. He looked toward Adabi. But because of proven integrity. Gasps filled the room. Adeobi's eyes widened. Sir. I can't. Chief Emeka gently interrupted. You already have. She shook her head. I've never managed anything like that. You've managed something far more valuable. He smiled. You managed to keep your character when everyone tried to take it from you. Tears rolled down Adeobi's cheeks. I only did my job. No. Chief Emeka answered. You did what many powerful people fail to do. You remained honest when dishonesty was easier. He slowly walked toward her. Every step echoed through the silent room. Then, in front of his children, executives, and household staff, Nigeria's billionaire gently folded his hands together and bowed his head. I'm sorry. The room froze. I allowed my test to place a burden on you. Adabi immediately stepped back. Please, sir. No. His voice trembled. My late wife believed that gratitude should never be delayed. He looked up. You reminded an old man that integrity still exists. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Weeks later, the mansion had changed. Femi resigned from day-to-day control of the family company and enrolled in a corporate governance program, determined to earn his father's respect instead of demanding it. Tolani began personally overseeing the family's charitable projects. For the first time, she met the people whose lives were changed by every donation she had once called a waste. Chike apologized to Adabi. She accepted his apology but reminded him gently. Trust grows slowly. He nodded. I know. Mrs. Ronk chose to leave the mansion. Before departing, she stood outside the staff quarters holding a small travel bag. Adabi walked toward her. Without saying a word, she handed Mrs. Ronk a neatly wrapped parcel. Inside were 2 neatly sewn uniforms and a handwritten note. Wherever you begin again, may honesty arrive before fear. Mrs. Ronk broke down in tears. I'm sorry. Adabi embraced her. So am I. That quiet embrace became the story everyone in the mansion remembered, not the accusation, not the will, but the moment forgiveness defeated bitterness. 6 months later, children from villages across Nigeria filled the courtyard of the newly opened Adeyemi Character Foundation. Scholarships were awarded not only for academic excellence but also for acts of honesty, kindness, and service. Chief Emeka attended the opening in a simple white agbada instead of an expensive designer outfit. When journalists asked why he had created the foundation, he smiled and pointed toward Adabi, who was helping a nervous 12-year-old girl pin on her scholarship badge. I spent my life building wealth, he said quietly. She reminded me to build people. The cameras turned toward Adabi. She looked embarrassed and simply knelt to straighten the little girl's shoes. The child looked up and asked, Auntie, why are you helping me? Adabi smiled. Because someone once believed in me. The little girl hugged her tightly. Chief Emeka stood beneath the shade of an old mango tree, the same kind of tree where he had mourned his wife on that rainy night. This time, he was not alone. Children laughed around him. Hope filled the air. He looked up at the bright Nigerian sky, closed his eyes for a brief moment, and smiled, not because he had found someone worthy of his fortune, but because he had found someone worthy of his trust. And that became the greatest inheritance he would ever leave behind. True worth is not measured by the size of your estate, but by the strength of your character. Money can be inherited, but integrity must be earned. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring African story. Now tell us in the comments, if you were Adabi, would you have forgiven Mrs. Ronk after everything she did?